I'm going to mute you, Alan, so we don't hear all your typing. Okay. All right. So to start off, I just want to go through the mini sprint real quick, and then and then we can sort of talk about it. By the way, I guess we can just start off. Did you guys have any questions that are you need answered right now, or like how did everybody do on this sprint? Did everybody, the mini sprint is what I'm referring to. How was this for everyone? This little project. I guess I can just put in Slack like a thumbs up or a thumbs down thing that Ty does. So I guess we'll do this message and then a thumbs up if it was super easy. Where's our bread? Bread if it was like just okay, and then down, thumbs down if it was really difficult to comprehend and get through. Yeah, a bunch of okay, a couple okays. All right. Okay, so no thumbs down. That's good. All right, so let's walk through a solution for this, and we can talk about the principles as we go. So let me go to that. What did I just call it? It's called LS-React router. Okay, and let's pull it up. Okay. So once again, just walking you through how I approach like new packages or like building a project or whatever. The first thing I look at is the package JSON. So you'll notice that I've given you Bootstrap, obviously React. Some of these CSS like transitions are just necessary for Bootstrap to use like different transitions with the virtual DOM, because the virtual DOM and the regular DOM behave differently. So React has built these add-ons you can pull in, and they're required for this package called React Strap. All right. So React Strap is like a Bootstrap 4 package for React components, and that's kind of what I built this around. And that may have been a gotcha for a couple of you who maybe were wondering about the navigation. All right, and then start, build. Okay, so we don't need to worry really about these three, but yeah, for start, because this was created with Create React app. Anyway, we have React DOM, and that should be and React Router DOM, and that's the important package that we're working with today. All right. So while we're going, I'm going to make sure I have the chat window up. Oh, you're okay, Alan. I was just calling you out because I always try and mute myself the first thing I do when I get into a meeting, unless I'm going to be teaching it. So. Okay, so all right, so now let's get familiar with our app. We have this main CSS file. Not a lot going on here, just a couple of trivial styles to like make things look a little decent. Our main app just renders out a navigation. Okay, but we're importing in home, about, and contact. So those are three components that we're going to be able to use in this app. And then inside of here, we have Bootstrap. Okay, and so we don't have any React DOM stuff going on right now. So let's go to the README, and we've installed it, but we haven't included it. So the first thing we need to do is inside of our index.js file, we need to add React DOM, so or React Router DOM, and that's just the new package. So there's React Router DOM, and there's also React Router. Whoa. Just so I don't get confused. There's also React Router native. So when we get into React Native, you can add the power and familiarity of React DOM to your React Native iOS and Android applications, and it uses sort of the power that React Native and React packages let you wield that comes out of the box with them. So just from the React Router 4 docs, just to reiterate that, you already went over this in the like little lecture. So declarative routing for React.js, you can see there's two different types of packages, web and native. So you can be specific about which ones you want to use, or they give you like the core. You can just download and install the core if you want. All right. So, and their documentation and like little tutorial stuff is phenomenal. So if you get to like reading through their philosophy, I highly recommend just like browsing through this. It'll only take you, 15 or 20 minutes. Okay. So, okay, routing, the reason we're focusing on this stuff is because it's how we are able to sort of navigate um, between URLs in your client-side applications, because we're not requesting HTML pages from the server anymore. That's kind of the old school way of doing it. So that paradigm has sort of shifted. Now, you may get into some developer environments where they're not building single-page applications, where you're stuck using the server-side language of their choice, and that server-side language just serves up templates. Where it's very common to see templates served up still today is like email templates. So if your company has like a bunch of like welcome emails and reset password emails and things like that to send out to the users, normally you send those off from the server anyway, and then through a protocol called SMTP. It's a mail transfer protocol, so email transfer, not snail mail, obviously. So instead of using HTTP, there's a protocol called SMTP that you would use it. So that's a very common place where you'll see like HTML files existing in server-side code. But now everything is done on the client when you build single-page applications. So we need router to be able to handle that client. So first thing we're going to need is our browser router. And we're just going to import it as router because that's a very common practice, because this is just, router is going to be like our router that's going to wrap our entire application. And this could be hash router, which is better used for like static websites. So serving up static content that you're going to be like needing the use of like SEO and like search engine optimization stuff and marketing and whatever. But what this does is this provides like a URL that's a little bit dirty looking. That would be like URL slash and everything like sort of trails after this hash sign instead of the browser router, which sort of gives you that. Sorry, I'm used to calling it browser history because that's what it was called with React 3.0. Okay, but yeah, it gives you that history object that I mentioned, and you have access to these things like in the browser. So browser, router, okay, and then we'll wrap this entire component. And okay, so that should be all. That should be all we need to do for this file, but I'm getting some sort of error here. And I'm wondering why. So whatever this means, so I mean, I can just call render if I import it. Interesting. I wonder if my application will boot up regardless of this linting error that I'm getting. So npm start, and don't have all the npm. Oh, so I need to actually install my packages. That'd be nice before I actually started coding, right? Hey, who didn't catch me on that?
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Is it because you wrapped the app in browser router instead of just router?
Oh, yes, that's probably right. But I'm still getting some weird error, and I think it's because I don't have this stuff yet. So now if I npm start, just go away. Okay. So, oh wow, look at that. Okay, let me do this over. Let me just make sure I can get my app spun up first. No one had these problems, I'm sure, right? It's funny because I just barely like did this earlier. So it's just telling me that it doesn't like any of this stuff. Am I importing in app? Am I exporting app correctly? Okay. This is weird. Let me just go all the way back to square one. Worst comes to worst, just Command Z everything, right? Okay. An app isn't giving me navigation. Okay. So now I got my project to boot up. So you can see that it actually booted up and we just have these links that come from navigation. But now let's make sure that we get it all strung up with React Router. All right. Oh, and I know what the problem was. Oh, geez, I'm an idiot. Okay, so import browser router as router from React DOM router. I didn't have the React DOM part. I just did it from React Router. What? React Router DOM. There we go. Now we're just getting these linter errors where it's like it's defined but never used, and that's fine at this point. So we'll break and we'll do router wraps app. There we go. Okay. So
Right.
now,
This break necessary was exclusive from code sandbox.
oh, so it was just exclusive for Code Sandbox that we had that error? Okay,
Yep.
cool. Okay, so now you can see that we have this router wrapping our entire project. So everything we do in here is going to be a child of router, so it can implicitly receive the history depending on where we're at. So you can do things like pass that match down or the history or whatever. So match is just it's a object given to us to like go through the parameters and see exactly what's available to us, and that's what's really cool about what's built in on this this React browser history object. We have that match property, which is really sorry, it's not on the history object. It's actually on a match project on its own state. So and then it has that exact Boolean that if I didn't show you this in the example, but this is something that I wanted you guys to try and like discover on your own throughout the project to like start looking at what packages are doing. So if you do if you're going to wrap your whole entire package in like a provider or you connect or like your store or whatever for Redux, I highly recommend you seeing exactly what Redux is doing to your application under the hood, and the React Dev Tools lets you see it. No, I don't like that. So what's cool about React Dev Tools is you can I like that one the best. So is you can go and play around with it as if it's like a little code editor. So all right, cool. So up to this point, it's all we're doing is simply wrapping and registering our app as it being wrapped with React Router, and that's going to allow us to now have history. We're going to have state that is going to be controlled by the parent of our entire project. Okay. So the next thing that I think was requested was history on props. Okay, cool. And then inside your app.js, we're going to import route and we're going to define our routes. Okay. So inside of here, now we need to import in what? What do I need to define routes?
The
Router. So I need to import router.
link.
Is it link or is it router or what is it? What registers are routes based on the video? So I'll just do a little quick poll. So click on whatever you think.
Router.
Oh, Pulley didn't do it. Yeah, it is route. Antonio beat me to it. Pulley is, yeah, I forgot an L. Okay. Antonio, you beat me to it. But yeah, it's route. So route registers our routes. So that's the component that we need from our React router package. Okay. So, and it was kind of crazy in the video. I was able to do this in like all one file. And so it's probably like all clustery and made code sandbox makes it look weird and stuff. But now if we go and actually, whoops, we don't need 4 routes for this project. We only need these 2. So, and then route takes what prop? Oh, yeah, Jake said it in the Zoom chat. So what prop does route take? 2. So we have 2. No, wait. There's 2 props that we're looking for here. Yep, path is one of them. And that just takes a string. And then the other one is component. Pretty straightforward. All right. So, and then in here, we can just say these are the components we want to render out. Okay. And then the path, though, is going to be home. And that's going to be our root. About is going to be our about. And contact is going to be our contact. Okay. Oh, I have a typo. All right, so now what's cool is React, so route, the component from React router DOM, takes this path element or path attribute. It looks like an attribute, but it's a prop. And then it basically starts to register that within the history scope. All right, so now that we have sort of a little bit more access to it, okay, so now we're rendering, you can see we're rendering out our home component. But what happens when we go to about? Okay, that's kind of weird, right? So think about this for just a second. We just navigated away from the root and we went to about. What about contact? Okay, that's weird too. It's switched out about, but it's got contact. And that is, it has everything to do with this prop. Okay, so inside our route, okay, we have, you can see now our history, we have 3 as our length, okay? And now in here, we have this match object. Okay, so if we, and right now it's selected to false. So if we register one of these as an exact, which we would want to do to home, well, now I can't refresh. It's not going to let us just toggle it on the fly. What happens is this statement right here, this is a statement, okay, essentially is what it is. And it's because this is using a regex, a regular expression under the hood. So it's trying to parse through this and match this root URL to this component. Now, because there's nothing telling it otherwise, it's matching this as well for about when about is served, and it's matching this as well. And you notice that if we rendered out contact and about, they were swapping each other. So if it was about, it was actually rendering about. If it was contact, it was actually rendering contact. So on our line 10, what do we need to add to our, what prop do we need to add to our route here in order for this behavior to stop? Exact. Thanks. So now you can see that home does not get rendered. And I wonder if it's just out of the box. Yeah, see now you, oh, it's a prop. So it was on, we were looking at the state for match, and that's a different thing. Is exact is different. I'm sorry, I led you down the wrong path there. Path, no pun intended. But yeah, now if we toggle this, exact is true and false, and if we were to re-render it, you'd see that it would be loading in that home component every time. So Yes, now we have this exact property, and just the fact that it's there, JavaScript or React knows to evaluate this to a Boolean. So if exact isn't something defined as like a phrase or like a variable or something, it'll just evaluate it to a Boolean. All right. So the last and final piece that I wanted us to go through was figuring out how to link everything together. So now, by the way, if you have anything that ever looks like this, import home, about, and contact from the components directory, what this is doing inside of Node, or what Node is doing here, is looking for an index.js file. All right. So this is just going to look for index because we left index off, and we're like looking for multiple objects coming out of it. That's why if you saw this and you're like, that's so weird that he's just importing things in to export them, but it just allows me to, instead of import home from home, import about from about, allows me to just simplify it to one line like that. All right. So you guys feel free to design your apps like that moving forward, where you have like components. So you have a bunch of components in like a directory, and you want to then export them out from one file so that you can import them in on one line. It's really nice and handy. So
Ryan, I could import like with a time sign, all right? In the case I will import everything.
yes, you can if you want. With the so you're saying, yeah. So instead of saying, so you would have to do something like this, along import as comps, and then say no, not that.
I think you can just put the time signal and use as you are using,
Import.
because you can import everything and then use as you are using.
Maybe. That's yeah,
With
that's
the
invalid
object
syntax.
signal, with the object signal, because you are exporting objects. I mean, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it needs to be as something. But then
Oh, got it.
you run into this where you have to do something dot or something like that. But yeah, for now, it would be without the curly braces as well. But that's, I mean, that's a little bit more advanced. It's not a huge. There's not very many like applications that I've built where like wildcarding everything to the dollar sign and then assigning it a global object to it is like, or like a wrapping object is like super beneficial. Maybe if you're working on a large team and you have like a ton of reducers coming out of a directory, or you have like a ton of action files coming out of a directory or something like that that you're working in with Redux, I could totally see that being the case. So, but yeah, you can wildcard it, and you know we could sit here and figure out the syntax or whatever. But I'm just showing you that that's a little shorthand there that you can use to get everything out of the index.js file. So not this index.js file, this one that's inside of components. All right. So now in our navigation, we need to change some things up. So what's the last piece that we need from our router? The character that saves Zelda every couple of years. React router DOM. I always have to think about it because it's interesting. Okay, so now this is a part that was like sort of intended to be a little bit maybe tricky, or maybe it got you, or maybe it was just super easy for you. But we just sort of kind of left you to figure this last part out. So on your own, which part was it? So change the href on link to 2 and specify the correct routes to navigate to. So that was a pretty, I mean, that was not very, what do you call it? Hand-holdy, if you will. So it was pretty much, you had to like imply it. So what are our routes that we need to route to if we click on these links? The first one is home is going to take us to root. The next one, pretty self-explanatory, right? Okay. So now navlink is defined but never used, so we can delete it from React Bootstrap. And then we're taking on some styles that now we can actually navigate. So we should have been taking on the styles from whatever, but anyway, so that is a crash course intro to React Router. You're now going to be implementing it with a Redux implementation. So your next project, you've gotten sort of the hang of it, at least a little bit, a walk around with like sort of abstracting out, like, so your navigation exists all in one file, and that's a very common practice. And then like you're wrapping everything, and then you're defining your router like at your main app file. That's a very common placement for it as well. And then the final thing is that you wrap everything with router. So it's a pretty straightforward thing, at least at this level. And then if you wanted to, you could have found a way to build another component and then import that component in, and then maybe like have that component piggyback off of like, so maybe you make a new component like I did in the tutorial called friends, render out a list of friends or movies or whatever, and then like you click on a single movie and it navigates you to that particular movie. So that could be very beneficial to learn, because that's something you're going to have to deal with in the real world for sure. But yeah, the next sprint should be a little bit more challenging in that you're going to be using React Router inside of a Redux implementation. And all the principles are pretty much like still there. They're pretty much straightforward from what you've learned today. So before we get started on that, I'm wondering if you guys have any questions or you have anything you'd like me to go over with before I turn you loose for the rest of the evening and you can get into your partnerships and start dissecting the repo. Okay, so I'm just gonna release one little poll before you get started, and then I'll paste your sprint for this sprint in Slack. So go ahead and give me a vote. 1 being you're totally lost with React Router, and 5 being you could teach it to somebody else. At least what you know so far about React Router. There's a lot more to it, but this is like a crash course. So go ahead and fill that poll out. Nobody's clicked on it yet, which really concerns me. Cool. Mostly in the middle, some high. Okay. Ooh, totally lost. Oh, somebody changed their vote. Okay. So 1 is you're totally lost. 5 is you could teach somebody else. At least what we've done so far. Like you could teach this to your little brother or sister or whatever. Okay, cool. So that's where we want you guys as the majority, pushing towards like enlightenment or understanding of these concepts. So at least for these mini sprints. Okay, so now I'm going to release your sprint and go ahead and jump into partnerships and